bringing some pain, baby.
Tyson was just a phenomenal fighter then. He beat a lot of fighters before he even got in the ring. They folded before the fight started.
Me and Mike Tyson is a brutal business.
Really, he was the guy that you had to beat. You had to go through him to be champ.
I enjoy doing what I do. I enjoy hurting people. That's what I do for a living. That's what all you guys come to watch me hurt people. That's what I like to do. I'm in the hurt business. I really like it a lot.
Tyson is Mike Tyson and a great fighter, and there's very few fighters in boxing history that could stand up to him.
I'm not the ordinary man, I'm the extraordinary man. I take my will and power and go to levels where no one can go. You know what I mean? I'm beyond good or evil, right or wrong.
Mike Tyson is probably one of the most misunderstood athletes in the history of professional sports.
He was very respectful, he was humble, and he was really dedicated. He worked extremely hard. It was only later on that the bad influences started to creep in.
In the history of sports, few athletes have divided opinion as much as Mike Tyson. A boxing legend, Tyson's behaviour in and out of the ring both captivated and repulsed the watching world. We offer a unique perspective on Tyson's legend through the words of the world's leading boxing commentators and the people who knew him best.
Tyson's place in heavyweight history has been seriously distorted by the things he's done outside the ring.
In the gym, you all want to be the best, so it was awfully hard to try to be the best when he was there with you. He didn't realize he was the best.
Mike is not a saint. Mike made a lot of mistakes, but now people are realizing that he had a lot more to offer as a human being than just being a great fighter.
Michael Gerard Tyson's journey to the top of the boxing world began in the sleepy town of Catskill in upstate New York. As a boy growing up in Brooklyn, Tyson was a violent gun-wielding street criminal, arrested on countless occasions for robberies and muggings. It was whilst in a juvenile centre for delinquents in upstate New York that the 13-year-old's rage was channeled into boxing. He soon came to the attention of legendary fight trainer Cus D'Amato. The 70-year-old who coached former heavyweight world champion Floyd Patterson became a surrogate father to Tyson and moulded the broody young Hulk into Iron Mike.
Don't forget, he was only 13, so he was a very likable child, like a puppy that would misbehave but is lovable, and that's how he was. He was just another part of the family in the beginning, but it was easy to see that he learned quickly and his skills were remarkable.
When we visited Cus this time, Cus took us to the gym and pointed to a young boy who was hitting the heavy bag very ferociously and said, "That's Mike Tyson." And we said, "Yes, we heard that he was here." And he said, "Yes, not only is he here, but he will undoubtedly go on to become the youngest heavyweight champion in history."
D'Amato knew his young protege had something special. Launching him into a successful amateur career, Iron Mike's reputation soon began to spread. Aligning Mike with business associates Bill Caton and Jim Jacobs as his financial backers, everything was prepared for Tyson's assault on professional boxing. Age 19, he made his pro debut in New York, knocking out Hector Mercedes. It was a clear sign of things to come. Tyson won his first 19 professional bouts by knockout, 12 of them in the first round. His win streak attracted media attention, leading many to bill the youngster as the next great heavyweight champion. Tyson's explosive start, elusive style and brutal punching speed had rarely been seen before. Unfortunately, D'Amato was unable to see his charge fulfill his potential. He died in November 1985, aged 77. A year later, Tyson had the chance to fight for the heavyweight championship of the world against WBC title holder Trevor Berbick. At 20 years, 4 months and 22 days, and in devastating fashion, Tyson became the youngest heavyweight champion of all time, eclipsing Floyd Patterson's record.
We were just sure that it was going to happen. We knew a long time before, thanks to Cuss, that it was a foregone conclusion. That barring any unforeseen circumstances, as long as he still had the desire, that he was going to be heavyweight champion of the world.
That Tyson was an extraordinary fighter, tough, a hard puncher, but it was his brilliant boxing that put him in position to deliver those devastating punches. He had been taught by the greatest teacher and trainer of all time, Cuss D'Amato, and Cuss lavished time and effort on him. Spent 5 years of intensive effort taking this 13-year-old boy and making him ready to challenge for the heavyweight championship of the world and win.
The next 4 years saw Tyson defeat all comers. He was like a human wrecking machine. He charged through the heavyweight division, unifying the titles, establishing himself as one of the all-time greats. His defeats of James Bonecrusher Smith and Tony Tucker saw Tyson become the first heavyweight boxer to hold the WBA, WBC and IBF titles simultaneously. Because of Tyson's strength and outstanding skills, combined with his lack of entrance music and boxing robe, Tyson projected an aura of menace, which many fighters found intimidating.
Wow, you know, it was crazy. I mean, you know, it was a circus. They did a tremendous amount of promotion around him, marketing, and they had built him up to invincible, Iron Mike Tyson, and all that. And it'd be kind of easy to get caught up into that hype.
I don't know, I never came in the ring trying to intimidate anybody. I just came in, presented myself. And whatever happened, if that happened, they choose to be intimidated, cool. Regardless of what happens, they're gonna get hit eventually.
In June 1988, Tyson met Michael Spinks. Both undefeated, Spinks had been stripped of the IBF title after refusing to face Tony Tucker and was seen by many to be the true lineal champion. Consequently, the Tyson fight was for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. Boxing pundits were predicting a titanic battle of contrasting styles, but Tyson made a mockery of the predictions, and the fight ended after 91 seconds when he knocked Spinks out.
Spinks was his finest moment in terms of, here is Exhibit A, these are the things I can do. Remember, yeah, Spinks was a little frightened, but remember, he cut that ring off, and it was step, 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 bing. Now all of a sudden, it was like Spinks was trying to fight on an ice floe with the ocean all around him, and it wasn't going to work.
Tyson was just a phenomenal fighter then. He beat a lot of fighters before he even got in the ring. He psyched them out. You know, coming from the streets, the street guy that he was, he just put a lot of people under so much pressure, they folded before the fight started, as he did in Atlantic City with Spinks. He just completely melted in the ring. He was like a rabbit trapped in the headlights of an oncoming juggernaut.
The big bad bully of the 1980s was technically perfect. Bobbing and weaving, elusive, capable of fighting inside and from the perimeter. Always throwing combinations, always working the body, always coming out on top. But outside the ring, Mike Tyson's life was in chaos. By the end of the decade, his ill-fated marriage to Robin Givens had ended acrimoniously. He drove a car into a tree in an apparent suicide bid. He was getting into street fights with former opponents, and he had split with the management team Cuss D'Amato had set up and joined Don King, a move that upset those close to him. In early 1990, in one of the greatest shocks in the history of the sport, he was sensationally beaten by massive underdog James Buster Douglas.
Mike Tyson was on his way to becoming a truly great fighter, and I thought could continue to improve and perhaps be a true competitor for the title of greatest fighter of all time. But following the Spinks fight, in which he was absolutely brilliant, he left Kevin Rooney, he left me, he left Steve Lott, and went over to a man named Don King, who got his tentacles into him, or hooks, whichever word you want to use. And from that point on, he deteriorated noticeably.
He should have been the greatest heavyweight that ever lived. He still is right up there, right up there. As far as his skill, his speed, his ability, when he wasn't misled by so many people like Don King and Robin Givens and Ruth Roper, and when he wasn't misled by all those people, his capabilities were limitless, absolutely limitless.
And then things got really bad. Having lost his title, he then lost his freedom. In February 1992, Mike Tyson was convicted of raping beauty pageant contestant Desiree Washington and spent over 3 years in jail. It's a crime he continues to deny committing.
I think that if Cuss and Jim Jacobs together were alive, that Tyson would have been an entirely different person. He would never have gotten out of line, and I think he certainly would be have the problems he does today.
So far, we've followed Tyson's remarkable journey from the streets of Catskill to becoming boxing's youngest ever heavyweight world champion, and then losing it all. Coming up, we see Mike make his boxing comeback following his release after 3 years in prison.
I don't believe in rehab. I don't believe in rehabilitation. I believe some people are smarter than others and they watch their ass.
We hear from his opponent in one of the most controversial fights in boxing history.
He was like this, and you know, I get ready to kick him right in the balls.
And we learn how retirement is treating the baddest man on the planet. In part 1, we saw how Mike Tyson reached the pinnacle of heavyweight boxing, lost it all, and served 3 years in jail for rape. We now reveal how Tyson fared after his release, and in his subsequent comeback to professional boxing.
Mike Tyson!
Now under the guidance of Don King, Tyson set about getting into shape for his first fight back against the Hurricane Peter McNeely. Initially, Tyson Mark II appeared to show little difference as a fighter, and certainly his experience in prison did little to change Tyson's outlook.
I don't believe in rehab. I don't believe in rehabilitation. I believe some people are smarter than others and they watch their ass the next time they get out of trouble. There's no such thing as rehabilitation. Just, I didn't like that experience, so I'm not going to go that route anymore to get in trouble no more. But you know, I'm still capable of doing the same thing, they say.
In 89 seconds of pure burlesque, he made his victorious return to the ring against McNeely, earning $281,000 a second for his night's work. The fight broke all records for gate receipts, TV revenue, and column inches for a boxing match.
It is pandemonium here, and Tyson is bigger coming out than he was going in. Over 5,000 press credentials were requested. That's enough to fill up the arena by itself with just the press to carry the word of Brendan Forlight to their respective countries. It's excitement, it's enthusiasm. Jumped up and I was ticked off to the fullest. That if anything that I could have done, I was getting ready to do the old Holyfield. And we would talk. if somebody do something to you, do it back, do it, make it, you got to do it worse. So you know what? My first thought is that I'm getting ready to chew his ear off. I'm gonna bite him, gonna gorge him.
Remarkably, the fight was allowed to continue before Tyson was eventually disqualified at the end of the third.
They said, come on in, and he doing like this. Yeah, he was happy, telling me to come on. And I get up there, I come on like this, and I act like I'm gonna get on him, and I step back and look at him, then he started whining, and I started catching some shots. So you know what? Then he grabbed me and bit my other ear. Then I started to kick him. I jumped back and I get ready to kick him right in the balls.
Many in the media who were ringside that night felt that Tyson had deliberately got himself disqualified to avoid another beating at the hands of Holyfield.
Who among us wants to be humiliated? And who among us wants to be humiliated in an arena of, say, 17,000 people? And who among us wants to be humiliated around the world on every freaking television screen? It's very understandable. And how the method he chose is not understandable. I mean, it's not, you know, you can't chalk it off the way you were raised or where you're growing up in a tough neighborhood or whatever. It's just something you don't do. And I will say this, there was not one bite but two bites.
I think that he really has no control over his rage, and he himself admits that. And maybe a lot of people find that entertaining or exciting or unpredictable, and that's the quality that makes them drawn to him.
The Nevada State Athletic Commission, which sanctioned the fight, moved quickly to punish Tyson, withholding $3 million of his purse. Tyson himself found it difficult to explain his shocking actions of that night.
The Nevada Athletic Commission found that you had intentionally bit Evander Holyfield twice, once on each ear. Do you dispute that finding?
No.
Why did you intentionally bite Mr. Holyfield?
I don't even, to be honest, I don't even know why I bit Mr. Holyfield. I don't even know how I did it. I was just, oh man, it's really hard to explain. I was in a rage. I didn't know what was going on. It just happened, and I just went berserk. I was engaging into the fight, and I was getting weak. I was lightheaded from the headbutts, and I was desperate, and I was irate, and I just snapped, and nothing mattered anymore at that particular moment.
Do you feel sorry for what you did?
Yeah, I'm sorry for what I did, and I wish it never happened. It haunted me for the rest of my life, and haunted my family, and they have to deal with it. But the fact that it happened, and I apologize. I'm sorry.
The incident saw Tyson's license revoked by the Nevada State Athletic Commission for over a year as he lurched from one controversy to another. Although he did make a return to the ring, he was soon back behind bars for 4 months in February 1999 after assaulting 2 elderly motorists in a road rage incident.
Tyson's place in heavyweight history has been seriously distorted by the things he's done outside the ring. This is a guy who can't control himself on the street. This is a guy who gets into all these situations.
His stop-start career resumed with a series of fights against mostly weak opposition. Even these were marred by Tyson allegedly trying to break an opponent's arm, fighting after the bell, hitting a referee, and testing positive for marijuana in a post-fight urine test. However, to the watching world, Mike was as irresistible as ever, never one to couch his comments in traditional quotes. In 2002, when the long-awaited showdown with Lennox Lewis was announced at a press conference in New York, Tyson again made headlines for all the wrong reasons. Amidst the melee, he bit Lewis on the thigh. As a result of his increasingly bizarre behavior, many US cities sought to distance themselves from the Tyson freak show, and Mad Mike was refused a license to box in most US states.
The reality is, I'm not allowed to be human as long as I'm doing this. I mean, so I just gotta, sometimes people say, you know, it's true, I'm afraid of greatness, because I'm too humble to be great. You know what I mean? I only praise Allah. Only Allah is great. But when you hear a million people telling you great every day, you know what I mean, sometimes that goes to your head.
But Tyson's ability to draw a crowd remained undiminished, and eventually Memphis in Tennessee offered to stage the bout, and the Rumble on the River became the biggest grossing fight of all time. Looking to become heavyweight world champion for a third time, Tyson was overwhelmed by Lewis. Despite all the controversy and the manner of his 8th round knockout defeat, he remained utterly irresistible.
There's no way you're going to get around Mike Tyson not being still a great heavyweight in a lot of ways. He's had such a great impact on boxing more than any heavyweight since Ali until this Olympics, and maybe still even, because he generated so much excitement, that vicious style of fighting that he's had. And he's had such a big market value on boxing and everything. You can't just say he was just a plain heavyweight.
In 2003, Tyson, who's once estimated to be worth at least $300 million, filed for bankruptcy following years of financial mismanagement and free spending. Admitting to receiving monetary handouts from drug dealers, Tyson returned to the ring against a string of mediocre opponents. The curtain finally came down on the boxing career of Gerard Tyson on the 11th of June 2005 against Ireland's Kevin McBride. Once the most feared boxer in heavyweight history, Tyson looked a pale shadow of his former self. Falling to the ground after a push at the end of round 5, Iron Mike failed to answer the bell for the 6th, choosing to quit on his stall.
I just don't have it in me anymore. He won fair and square. I'm just finished with this. I'm not good anymore. I can't take anything away from Kevin McBride, but as we all know, he's a C fighter. If I can't beat Kevin McBride, I can't compete in this sport anymore.
These days, Tyson lives a more sedate life in Las Vegas with his 3rd wife and 7 children. Always the consummate showman, though, Tyson has stayed in the public spotlight. He's appeared in a number of television shows, including The Roast of Charlie Sheen, and he's made headlines for his cameo appearances in the Hangover movies.
Mike Tyson is a very misunderstood individual who is really a decent guy and is trying to be a great father and really enjoy this part of his life and have some peace. And I think that the more people get to know Mike and the more chance they allow to have him in their life in some way, they'll find that he's a really decent guy.
In 2011, in his first year of eligibility, Tyson was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in Canastota, upstate New York. His induction meant he joined an elite list of fighters to grace the hall's hallowed walls, which includes Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Robinson.
What he did it well. He was a great fighter, and it brought a lot of excitement to the sport. So not only was his record good and his achievements well, but what he brought to the sport and the excitement generated even more fans, which was a great contribution to the sport of boxing.
One of the most colourful and controversial characters to ever set foot in the ring. Even in retirement, Mike Tyson provokes debate about his place among the sport's very best.
He should have been the greatest heavyweight that ever lived. He should have been, because what everybody saw was not maybe 50% of what he was capable of. He never reached, as far as performance in front of an audience, on camera, in a fight, his greatest level of ability.
He was the best during really, he was the guy that you had to beat. You had to go through him to be champ. And I would rate him right up there with Ali.
Mike Tyson is a name that you could say anywhere around the world and people would recognize, former heavyweight champion of the world. Like when you say Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, Rocky Marciano, Jack Dempsey, Joe Louis. There's certain names that you can say that identify to the greatest sports hero, being the heavyweight champion. And Mike Tyson is one of those names.
Despite the excitement and ferocious style of fighting that Iron Mike brought to the sport in the 1980s, his place in heavyweight history has been severely tarnished by his indefensible acts both in and out of the ring. His legacy is built on a brief but glorious past, superb hype, and a willingness to be the baddest man on the planet.
Man, listen, right? I'm a street person. I don't even want to be a street person. I don't even like typical street people. But that's just who I became and what happened in my life and the tragedies in life that made me that way. But, you know, I'm Mike. You know, I'm not malevolent or anything. I just am. And I just want to just live my life. And I know you guys talk bad about me, but I'm going to make sure you talk about me. Your grandkids and kids after that are going to know about me. They're never going to forget about me. The great-grandkids are going to say, wow, wasn't that a bizarre individual?